Megan.
Hello, Michelle.
Welcome to Sisters.
Sisters.
They were never such devoted sisters. Hey, it's so good to be here with you.
Good to be with you too.
So we love talking all about Rosie's brain. That was it NeuroSpicy, I think you just introduced me to the other day.
NeuroSpicy, yeah.
Neurodiverse, maybe some ADHD pepper thrown in there.
You know
we
what?
got all kinds of
best kind of pepper there is.
I love it. So I am curious today. I throw out either an idea or a story or something, and we kind of riff off that for a little while, and then we dig into that brain of yours to figure out what it is that's going on. And then we usually look at some sort of strategy or something that we're trying or you're trying, and then a shout out to our community. Our community is growing.
It is. It's so exciting.
So exciting.
Yeah.
I know. I just heard from a really good friend of ours from when we were little that his daughter is listening. And
wow.
I was so excited because I think you know her a little better than I do. But Liz, I think, is listening to us. So that's really exciting. So hi, Liz, if you're hearing us.
Hi, Liz.
We miss you.
Oh my gosh, we do miss you.
Okay, so I want to bring up the idea today of cooking.
Yes. Cooking.
So in this Google search that I did of the Google, I looked up symptoms of ADHD, and it said that cooking could be difficult.
Really?
Yeah. Now, I don't know what this is from, but I mean, I don't know. It wasn't some Mayo Clinic list or something, right? But
that explains so much, Michelle.
Go on.
I've struggled with cooking for many, many, many years. In fact, all of them.
All the years.
All of the years. I didn't know that it was potentially an ADHD thing. I just thought it was a me thing, but I guess I am ADHD, so it shouldn't be a surprise to me. I guess I didn't realize that other people have the same issue potentially.
Well, I want to know what the issue is, a little bit. So here's my memory.
There's no rule to cooking.
Okay.
Y'all are like, okay, you come in and you're like, oh Megan, it's so fun. You just go and pick up some fun ingredients at the store. You don't even know what you want. Just pick it up and, oh, that would be fun. Let me just put that in. And, oh, let me put that in. And then we try that. And I'm just like, that is my nightmare. Okay. You are crazy. I need to know what I'm buying. I need to know how many of them. And I need to know what I'm doing with it.
Okay, so this is my memory of you, is that you are baking in high school all the time. Yeah. Really good baker. Mm-hmm. And I see no disconnect between that and cooking in my mind, right? Like, I mean, I guess I'm not a great baker because I don't follow rules well. So maybe there is a disconnect. I guess you're either a baker or a cook, maybe, unless you've been trained. Okay, so I didn't know you had an issue with this. And I remember you first being married to Brian. And I'm not sure if you just didn't try to cook before then or didn't have the opportunity as much. Or I remember you making little things in New York when you were in grad school. But I remember you going to San Angelo and you had some food restrictions at the time. And it was San Angelo, Texas was kind of, what was their claim to fame? It was like, I think we're only...
Oh, no. Wait. Okay,
no.
Hold on. Do you know you can point your car in any direction and in 4.5 hours, you'll be somewhere?
And I thought it was such a beautiful town, San Angelo, and it was gorgeous, but like it really was not near major cities. And so it seemed at the time, I don't know if it is now, but for you anyway, with food restrictions, it was a bit of a food desert. Like it was hard to find, like basic butters that didn't have dairy or something in them. It was tough to find.
All that hippy dippy stuff. Yeah. There wasn't a lot of the vegan stuff at the time. Nowadays, who
I
knows,
mean,
they
this was like
probably
a decade ago, right? So it's
yeah.
changed everywhere so much since then. But so I wouldn't have any idea now. But I remember you were kind of concerned about it and you were trying to figure out. And so you started really cooking. And the process of this and watching you, because I was still, we were still FaceTiming, I think, at the
Yeah.
time. And we would still body mirror like we used to do when you were in New York and I was Japan. Now you're in San Angelo and I was back in Tucson and Arizona.
Mhm.
And so we are still on FaceTime and I'm like kind of watching you cook. And it was always this massive production. Like for me, I just pull some stuff out, I throw it in a pan and kind of go. I mean, I had training and like lessons on it because I definitely was nervous about it. But I remember you were measuring things in grams and I was like, whoa. I mean, I mean, I'm a science
Well,
teacher, but I have never measured anything in grams while cooking. So
yeah.
I was so impressed by you.
Well, I
So
don't
I'm
think it was
curious about
really
that.
cooking in the same sense that you're thinking of. I would say, though, that I was more preparing
Mm,
because I'd have to prepare a gluten-free flour or some sort of like vegan butter. And so I learned that when you're measuring things, it's better to measure in grams or like it's a weigh measure than it is to like do a cup because depending on how much air is in the cup, like it could actually change. And depending from cup to cup, some cups are not the same size, strangely enough. But like you can
right.
always weigh it and it's the same size.
Can I
And
just be picky for a second?
sure.
So grams are a measurement of mass. So it's how much stuff is there, but weight is when gravity is affecting it. So technically, sorry.
God. I don't know. I just
I
followed
had
what
to get
somebody
my
said on the
nerd on.
internet.
I had to get my nerd on for just a second. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Okay, but anyway, yeah, I agree with you though. I mean, I never thought of that, that's funny because I do when I taught science, I was talking about that all the time with
Yeah.
students and I didn't ever think of it. So you're so smart.
No, I just read it on the internet. So
Well,
that's
the internet is freaking genius.
genius.
Yes. Okay, continue on. So you were measuring things out.
Yeah. But what I realized is that I just absolutely hated doing it.
Mm,
And so I would make giant batches because I was like, look, if I'm going to make this, then I'm going to make like an 8 batch and I'm going to times everything by 8 and then figure it out, which is a lot easier to do with grams than it is to do with tablespoons or
yeah.
teaspoons, you know.
Why we all didn't go metric, I don't know, but understood.
There's an actual reason for that, but I think John Oliver we can tell you all about that.
Okay.
But so I would prepare all these different things and I tried, but what I did best is I did really good with making bread
Mm,
and baking and those kinds of things. Anything I could do in the oven was my jam.
okay.
And then Brian was the one where I'd say, "Okay, babe, just go into the kitchen, go into the fridge and throw something together." And he would. And I was always in awe of it 'cause I'm like, I don't do that.
Right.
I had no
Well,
idea.
and like Brian's the only one allowed in my kitchen.
That's true.
I don't let you anywhere near it usually unless you're
Yeah.
baking. So
Yeah.
why is that? I mean, you've done really well recently, honestly, but and there's certain things you're really good at. Like you make great mashed potatoes and you definitely make great mashed potatoes. No, I
I
mean, you
think
season things well. I mean, that's
hmm,
nowadays, I think, like really well, but
yeah, I'm patient,
mhm.
but also I think I've gotten better at cooking because that's sort of been one of those things I'm learning to do
Mhm.
and trying to get more information from other people about it. I think I like baking the best because it's very linear. It's linear. It's a weird way. It's like it's linear.
Mm.
And so I can keep track of it. There's like a list
Mm.
that I can keep track of, which is why I hate recipes when all of the ingredients are kind of like they're not in a column
Mm.
or they're like if it's in a paragraph, forget it. I'm not going to see it. It needs to be bullet pointed and
Yeah.
I totally get it. But it just seems a lot easier for me to do it that way because I don't miss the step because I can kind of check it off as I go.
When
Whereas
you're
like with
baking.
yeah, which
Mhm.
that's where I get in trouble where especially if it's like really small print or I hate it nowadays like where they have the ingredients up on one side like on the top of the page and then all the way at the very bottom you have to scroll a bunch of places just to get to the instructions and so it says okay put the butter and the salt in okay, I'll have to scroll back up and how much butter and salt did I need? Then I have to scroll back and then I've already lost
Mm.
my place. So the digital world has really just messed up my life.
Well, I feel like it's true. I mean, I have trouble with that. And so I tend to retype them or rewrite them so that I can follow them. And also
Yeah.
there's always ads in between things now. And a lot of and granted, I'm looking up something for free, I guess,
Yeah.
so I could get a cookbook or something, right? But I do think that is interesting though, because we've talked before about sort of having to have clear instructions as to what you're doing. And
Yeah.
so that makes sense that cooking is something that if your brain isn't telling you those clear instructions, a lot can go wrong. And in baking, they basically yell at you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that way. I'm like, do it this way. And if you don't put the egg when you're supposed to, it's all gonna die, and I'm like, it's so stressful. So for me, I
It's
don't
stressful.
appreciate that, but yeah, as
Oh, I
much.
love that.
Yeah.
That's my
Yeah.
favorite part. I'm like, tell me. You tell me what to do. Okay. What's next?
So as you've been kind of starting to cook more, because you have
Mhm.
been, can we like dig in a little bit into what it is you're thinking while you're cooking? So I know, for example, you've been making a lot of casseroles.
Right. I
Like
didn't know what a casserole was really
you didn't?
until like this last couple of years. Yeah. Because we
Oh
didn't
my
grow up
god.
with casseroles.
We made enchilada casseroles.
We did?
Yeah, like every other day. It was like a layer
No, we
of
didn't. I don't
yes, because
remember
I
this.
had to do them.
Oh, well, that probably why I don't remember them because by the time you left, that's when my memories really start. So
Oh,
we didn't
okay.
have them growing up after you left.
Well, it's probably a good thing.
Yeah.
I don't know that they were that good, but, I think I was 12 cooking, so it wasn't a good thing. So now that you're doing this, what's happening in your head while you're cooking? Because
Hmm.
you get distracted easily, right? So I'm thinking like, "Oh, there's a flame," and then your brain goes somewhere else, and now I'm worried that your sleeve's gonna be on fire. I don't know, I just could see
No, that is
tragedy.
not what's happening, Michelle. Thank you very much. Um,
What? I'm sorry, I'm not teasing you, I'm just trying to figure out
hold
what are
on.
you thinking
I
of?
gotta adjust my glasses one more time. Hold on for
She's
those of you who
she's
are
now flipping me off officially. Sorry. Okay, so walk me through a casserole cooking session
Well,
in Rosie's
you
brain.
I've been watching TikTok and people doing casseroles on TikTok, and I'm like, "Okay, I'll try that. That seems easy enough." Because if it takes too long or too many steps, I'm not gonna do it. It's just
Okay.
it's too complicated at the moment.
Julia
So
Julia Childs and you are not gonna be best friends.
probably not for a little while. I'm working on it, but yeah, right now I'm just trying to survive when it comes to food and just figure out how to get more comfortable and confident in the kitchen because I think that's where I really
Mhm.
lack when it comes to cooking. You asked about what happened before Brian. I just lacked confidence in the
Mhm.
kitchen. And I also had some preconceived notions of like I'm the little woman who's supposed to be able to do well. Like I had some feminist stuff that I was like I don't want to be the one who has to cook everything and clean all
Mhm.
the dishes and all of that. And I think most of it is just that I wasn't good at it. So, can blame it on a lot of things. But now it's like, okay, I'm just sort of chicken with my head cut off, trying to figure out, okay, what's the next step? And I'm rewatching the video. I have an easier time watching a video than I do reading because
Mm.
the words get all jumbled up for me when I'm reading. So then I mix up tablespoons or teaspoons or whatever it is, and then I make something too salty or whatever it is. There's also this thing where I've noticed that with cooking, there are a lot of in the recipes that I do find, there are a lot of assumptions being made
Mm.
that you understand, hey, if I'm making this chicken thing, that I should probably pat it dry or I should tenderize it or it'll say tenderize and I'm like, "Great. What the hell does that mean?" Okay, tenderize, sure. How? It's like the vacuuming all over again. It's like, well, how am I supposed to do it? They're like, oh, just braise it. Great. Yeah, I'll just braise it. What is it? I don't know.
Like
So
when you heard tenderize for the first time, what did you think it meant?
I don't know. I think I thought like, okay, I'll put on some like sexy music and turn down the lights and be like, hey chicken, how you doing? I'm gonna be like love and tendering over here. Like I don't I didn't know. Or even
Yeah,
just the word saute, right? You just take for
right.
granted, what does saute mean? What temperature am I supposed to put it at? How do I do that? Do
Mm.
I use a nonstick? What kind of utensil do I use? There's so many things that I just like, when you're baking, they say get an 8 by 8 inch pan. Great.
Huh.
I know what that is.
Yeah,
Get
that's
some
true.
nonstick. Great.
Mhm.
Grease the pan. They go very specific with it.
Hmm.
And
I
they'll even
wonder
tell
why they
you,
don't as chefs. It's sort of interesting when you think
because
about
all
it.
these chefs are like, oh, it's just this easy. You just have fun and you just, oh, and ooh, and,
Well,
so
I
read it.
didn't start
That's
out
what it
that
is.
way. I didn't start out that way for sure. I was really scared of cooking. And one of my former tutors had gone to the Culinary Institute. And so I had asked him if he would come tutor me.
Hmm.
And he did that. I think you remember Ty coming and tutoring me and cooking
Yeah.
for a few months. And it really did help to have some basic skills taught to me, and then I was able to riff off of it. But I do think that riffing is something that does, require my executive functioning to come up with steps, right? Even
Yeah.
though I'm not saying there's steps and ooh, it's just fun. I'm thinking it through.
Yeah.
I'm thinking like, oh, I'm going to pair this with this, or I'm going to move this over here, and this needs this much heat, and this has to be done at this time. So, I mean, there's a lot of detail in it.
Well, and that's what I am excited about this book I'm reading. And I'm going to butcher her name, I think, but it's this woman, her name is Sola Elwali.
Mm.
And I'm sorry I butchered your name. I think she's also a little neurospicy. And
Mm.
the whole book starts off with the fact that, she did terrible in culinary school because she just had so many questions about it. And she wanted to know the why about all the
Mm.
different things they were doing. And she got into a lot of trouble because she wanted to get into the weeds of all of it. And I was like, yes, I understand that. And so she goes through all of the basics and in a way that's understandable. It's not like it's not overly heady, but it
Mm.
does kind of break it down for you and it's fun and it's easy to understand. And she's like, look, you have to, put at least some sort of acid and some sort of salt and some sort of maybe some sugar and maybe a little MSG, which apparently is actually not bad scientifically.
Mm.
It's a whole other thing, but yeah, so she goes through she goes through it all and like talks about the science and talks about the research and explains to you in a very compelling way as to why she does food the way she does. And so it's at least kind of gotten me a little bit more comfortable with trying and just sort of, okay, let's just shake stuff on there, because apparently if you put too much salt, you just have to add some sugar
Mhm.
and that can help kind of balance it out.
Mm.
And it's worked. Like I've tried it and I'm like, whoa. I taught Brian that trick just the other day,
Yeah.
So there are some things I'm starting to get a little bit more okay with,
Mhm.
but it's still really hard for me and it just requires so much energy to
Mm.
be that free flowing. And so I think a lot of it I think a lot of it is just me trying to figure out, okay, how much energy do I have in a day and what do I want to give it to?
Mhm. And when you're thinking about yourself in the kitchen cooking, maybe a couple years ago, what are you telling yourself or what are you seeing? Because you think so visually. So I'm wondering like what it is you're seeing or feeling other than panic, I guess.
That's a big part of it. Panic. It's weird. I kind of go a little blank
Mm.
because I think I kind of glitch out a little bit when I'm in there. Kitchens have so much stimulus.
Mm.
Everything from beeping to smells to other
Mhm.
sounds to, lots of visual. It's a visual medium. There's so much going on. So it's a bit overstimulating for me to be in a kitchen.
You're noticing everything.
Yeah.
Everything. Okay. And so if you're in there and you're cooking something, and even if it's a good smell, that can still take your attention.
Oh, 100%. And even if it's a good smell, after a while, that good smell will actually become painful. So, for
Huh.
instance, I bake like a whole pan of, let's say, bacon.
Mhm.
and I just bake, do the in the oven. And then the whole house smells like bacon, which is cool, but then if it lingers on throughout the day and it doesn't go away, by the evening I have a headache. Or baked potatoes, they do the same thing. These things that are very that smell like a curry. I've made curry before. The same thing. It smells amazing, but then by the evening or by the next day, if it's still kind of lingering around, I just get a headache from it.
Do you know what that's about, or is that just the attention to it?
I don't know. I wonder if it is because it's like it just doesn't go away. Like there are some
Mhm.
times like where if I cook something, I have to take a shower afterwards because it's in my hair. And if it's in my hair, it's just overpowering. Like that's why I struggle to go out and be in a campfire because I
Mm.
come back and my entire body, my skin, my hair, everything just reeks of campfire smell, which is actually a very lovely thing when you're there. But then when you come in, it's so overpowering and it's just like, it just makes me really uncomfortable.
Mm. So it's interesting because we did a whole series just on your senses.
Hmm.
And I didn't consider that actually. I was thinking it was more like task oriented or remembering, which also would be true, right? Hard to remember like step by step, like you said. But I don't think I really considered the smell component.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if I have to do anything with citrus and I have to
Mm-hmm.
squeeze the citrus and it's on my hands, forget it.
Right.
I'm done. Or,
Interesting.
if I mean, that's just been the challenge I've had is that, if there's these very pungent smells, it can take me out and it just keeps reminding me. And then I'm like, even though it tasted amazing, I don't want to ever cook it again because I know that I'm going to end up having that smell in my kitchen.
Wow.
Whereas, like with baking, there's like this beautiful aroma. You can actually smell it as it's just about done. And like there's this like
Mm-hmm.
bloom that happens right when it's almost ready to go to be pulled out.
Hmm.
And then the whole house smells lovely, but then it just dissipates. I rarely have baking items unless I've burnt something that
Right. Yeah.
where it just reeks.
That kind of makes sense. There's not the same like oils and things that would be maybe heavier that kind of land all over the kitchen or land on you or
Oh my
things, right?
god. And chicken, oh, Michelle.
Tell me about the
Oh
chicken.
god. Okay, so I've heard all these horror stories about the bacteria on chicken and
Mm.
how even the smallest amount can give you food poisoning. And so anytime I'm using chicken, I'm just so obsessed and worried about that. I'm like, okay, can I put the knife in the same side of the sink with all the other items, or should I put it aside? And I just get too overwhelmed by it.
Interesting.
And I really stress out about the fact that I'm about to poison people.
Yeah, that would be scary if you thought you were going to poison them every second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, this one time I tried doing it with gloves on, and that seemed to go a little bit better because the juiciness of the chicken, I didn't feel it. Cuz like, when you pick up a chicken, like it just
Hmm.
doesn't really go away sometimes, that greasiness. And so then I'm like, okay, well, if my hands are still greasy, is the bacteria still on my hands or is that just something else? And I don't fully understand it. So then I'm thinking, oh my gosh, well, if it's on my hands and it's all over the kitchen sink and it's splashed on my clothes, and can I poison myself by accident like later on?
Have you made yourself or others sick before?
No, because I'm that neurotic about it.
But I am not neurotic. I don't think I've poisoned anybody.
Yeah.
But I understand the way they've done those. They do that thing where they put the stuff on your hands and then they do the black light and you can see everywhere you touched. And I think that's true.
Mm, mm-mm,
Yeah.
mm-mm.
Yeah. So,
We just started watching Monk. I just
oh,
introduced that to Brian, and like,
yeah.
there's a part of me that gets it. I understand,
Yeah.
just like that. You see the black light, you're like, oh, oh,
And I think
no.
that's the other part of the alphabet soup, maybe, right? Like that there's sort of like a bit of compulsion to some things,
I mean, it was a tendency,
a tendency. Okay.
OCD tendencies. I wasn't officially diagnosed with that one, but
You're
I
like, I
had
am not taking
tendencies.
that one too, Michelle.
Well, yeah, that one was actually trauma based. So
Hmm.
yeah.
But honestly, after COVID, I feel like everyone has a right to be a little bit more that way. And maybe we all should have listened to like Sheldon and Monk a little bit more.
Right.
Monk, was such a great detective show. If anyone hasn't watched it, the detective who has OCD and can't touch anything, which is kind of hilarious, right?
The
But
germaphobe, yeah.
germaphobe, can't go out. But I do think when I'm thinking about you cooking, it sounds to me like it's the greatest excuse never to cook again. Honestly, like, and I feel like you should be pretty proud of yourself for even getting in there and trying, because that's a lot. If every time you could end up with a migraine, I
Yeah.
get not wanting to try new things and not wanting to cook new things.
Yeah. It's been really challenging.
Mm. And so good that you married somebody who likes to cook, relatively.
Right? He's like, "Don't worry, Megan, I'll fatten you up." And yep. I was like, "Awesome. Do it." So, no, it is good that he cooks, and it has been challenging, and I still don't quite have that figured out. I mean, that's one of the things I've been working on recently.
Mhm. Well,
Yeah,
I
it's
like
tough.
that you came up with some ways to nourish yourself that weren't necessarily traditional cooking, though, like your
Oh,
charcuterie
yeah.
boards. And, you have these little things that maybe you buy kind of pre-made, but then you heat them up, and it's still, you're still nourishing yourself and your family. You're just not putting yourself in a situation where you have to chop every single thing. And
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is like it's really hard to be ADHD and also want to be a conservator for the earth
Mhm.
because a lot of these convenient things are actually really helpful for my brain. Things that are pre-cut or things that are pre-packaged, and I know they're not good for the earth,
Mhm.
but they're really good for helping me sustain and live. I've had to work through the guilt of all of that
Mm.
and try to recognize that I am not in a position where I can be a zero waste person. That's just, I just am not able to do that. And that it's really important to eat because there's a lot of times that I just don't eat.
Mhm.
And even if it doesn't seem like a quote unquote perfect meal or healthy or whatever people want to say, it fits and I fed myself and I
Yeah.
got my protein, I got my healthy fats, and I got my starch. I can now go for another 3 or 4 hours. That's the goal of food ultimately.
Mhm. And I think, like you're saying, this idea of being a conservator of the earth, there is an ableist piece around that as well, right?
Yeah.
And that, if you have, something where you need, for example, a colostomy bag, should you not have that because plastic isn't good for the earth? Or is it a situation that maybe the people who can do this should take care of those things, and the people who need to have these other supports should have them, give people a little more grace with what they need to be able to make it through the day. So I think it's great that you're figuring these things out and giving yourself that space to not have to be perfect at every single aspect of this. But
Well,
you're also doing a lot more than I've ever seen you do before, which is great too.
and I think that's also part of the reason why I want to create a space that's compassionate and why the word compassion is so important for me
Mm,
because there is so much shaming that goes on in our advertisement, marketing,
mm,
in just regular interactions with others. I mean, I remember distinctly having to learn about good food and bad food and that food does not have a moral.
mm,
God, and someone says, well, white rice is bad. And the woman says, well, if you have this very specific condition, you can only eat these refined carbohydrates. And white rice is the only thing that's actually healthy for you.
right.
So are you telling me that it's bad for that person?
Yeah.
And
Or like
so,
half the population of the earth who eats white
yeah.
rice daily. Right.
And
Yeah.
so just this idea that it works for you, that's great. I
Mm,
love that for you. I love that choice that you're making for you, but I'm making my own choice and that's okay as well.
mhm.
And that why does it matter what I'm doing? Why do you have to care what I'm doing?
Right.
And I
Yeah.
think this is where this trauma comes back into it, where I think it's easier to point at other people and not want to deal with your own trauma. And so you just look to other people and you point at them.
Mm.
And the reality is that we all have something we have to deal with. And you do you, boo.
So as you're thinking about your strategies,
Mhm.
And you doing you, right, is one of those strategies, it sounds like to me.
Yeah.
Are there any other ones besides, really like getting the things pre-prepared, especially the weeks or the days that you need that?
Mhm.
Is there anything else that you're finding is helping support you in this cooking/eating journey?
I really enjoy, like, if I need to get some fiber in my diet,
Mhm.
I really enjoy the prepackaged vegetable trays
Mm.
because there's just something about them that I'll eat them. There's something about the way it looks in this presentation that it's so much easier for me just to grab some vegetables.
Oh my gosh, it's like a prop table for your vegetables. We talked a lot about prop tables because Meg's, you're in the theater and so or have been in the past and the prop table.
That's
That's
kind of
funny.
my my I call it a coochie board. My charcuterie, how do I say it? The
Char- Charcuterie.
charcuterie board.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it is. It's like a prop table for I have like certain nuts and little sesame sticks and
Yeah.
banana chips and all. I have all the different things in there and I can instantly go to it and I have variety, but I can also choose how much of which one that I want.
Do you want
And
me to tell
so,
you my theory of I'm sorry, I interrupted. So, yes.
yeah. No, I've already forgotten. What? Tell me what.
Sorry.
What's your theory?
My theory of the charcuterie board with your generation, because we are in different generations. I think it is the grown-up Lunchables.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
You all like loved your Lunchables, and I did not get a Lunchable ever because A, we couldn't afford it, but two, I just thought it was everything and it was disgusting. And I remember, I don't know if you got Lunchables,
No, we couldn't afford it. I always
right?
wanted Lunchables. I was, like,
Yeah, but
coveting other
co
people's
other
Lunchables.
people's Lunchables, right? But it's like your entire generation of millennials is like,
That's so
charcuterie,
funny.
like, you cannot throw a stick without seeing some charcuterie something, and I'm like, "When did the charcuterie become a thing?" Now, I know other generations like it as well, but I really had this theory that it was because of missing Lunchables.
That's actually a really good hypothesis.
Okay.
And I also will say that I didn't know that it was a thing for
Mm.
many, many years because I just found out about it, I don't know, like 6 months ago
I
because I
found
was
out about it from
talking.
you. I had never
Yeah.
thought about it before.
I had neither had I, but I was talking to my nutritionist about it, and I was like, "I just wanna have I wanna have all these little things just kind of out, and I wanna be able to snack from them and enjoy the variety," and she's like, "Well, it sounds like you want a charcuterie board." I was like,
Yes,
"Yes!
I
What
do.
is that? What could that be?"
My entire life, that's all I've wanted.
That's funny.
Yeah, so I like this idea that maybe cooking isn't that focus for you, but that nourishing is.
Oh, 100%.
I love that.
And that I'm also just learning to not succumb to the judgments that some people have about my food choices.
Who's that?
I had for a long time, I struggle with lunch. I've
Mm,
always for some reason, I can do breakfast, I can do dinner for the most part, but lunch is just always a hard one for me.
mm.
And I finally realized that if I just do chicken nuggets
Oh, yeah, that's me judging
and
you, sorry, I apologize. I
mhm,
have a thing about watching some video about the chicken nuggets, and I just
mhm,
can't.
mhm.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
So it's the chicken nuggets, and I get some carrots or some cucumber or some kind of like a fresh veggie. I've usually got like some fruit as well. So it kind
Mhm,
of like grounds it out. And I talked to my nutritionist about it. I'm like, this just seems like it's a bad decision. And she's like, but you're getting your nourishment in. Oh, and
mm.
so usually there's some kind of like ranch or some sort of cheese, some kind of healthy fat somewhere in there. And don't come for me, people, because we're not a nutrition podcast, okay? I'm just telling you what I do. I'm
Yeah.
not telling you you have to do it. We're just here chit-chatting as sisters, okay?
And also,
Okay.
this sister will never eat a chicken nugget for lunch, so
But here's the thing though, is that
Yeah,
you won't, but I
that's
would
fine.
not eat lunch.
Yeah.
And then I would peter out and I wouldn't be able to I would just like binge later that evening or I wouldn't be able to get as much stuff done. And so just the simple fact of me making some freaking chicken nuggets most a couple times a week helps
Mhm.
me to get so much more done because I'm nourishing my brain and I'm nourishing my body and I'm taking care of what needs to be taken care of and I'm not focusing on it and getting down on myself.
Yeah, and let me
And
just be clear that I have no problem with fried anything. If you had had a fish stick, I would be totally happy because
Yeah.
inside the fish stick is real fish.
Yeah.
That's my issue. I just want to be clear. I'm not judging like anything other than the way they like make those stupid things, which I wish it would just be like great if it was just like not the things I saw that they mixed together to make it. But so it's a gross thing for me. It's not like okay. But I don't judge how important it is for anyone who is struggling with eating, who is struggling with cooking, to make sure that you're nourishing yourself in whatever ways you can. And that's super important. So that to me makes complete sense. And I think I have more empathy for understanding the cooking piece because for me, it is joyful and I do love doing it. And I know that you always tease me about that too. So some people judge me, just saying. But anyway, that I'm flitting around the kitchen and that's my safe space. And like, I like that. But I understand, I think, after this conversation even better, how all the conversations we've had before this tie together with this one thing, right? Which is all of your senses are so overloaded.
Yeah. I do not find cooking to be relaxing.
No,
at
I
all.
wouldn't think you would. Yeah.
And I've heard people say like, just put on some music. Well, that's
like
more
one more
stimulation. Yeah. They're like, oh, just have some alcohol. And I'm like, but then I don't know what I'm doing. And like, I don't, there's this fantasy life that I have where I would just be amazing and I would just saunter in and chop up some things and have a sip of my wine and just, and instead it's just like, oh my God, everything's gonna burn. Be careful, cut it up, cut it up.
I feel like you need a short video about that because that's pretty awesome to think. I mean, not awesome because it's hard, but I can appreciate it's a constant stress as you're doing it. So I am very curious if anyone in our community might have some strategies around this that they have found helpful.
Please give me some strategies.
Please.
I beg of you. I need help. Send help my way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for talking to me tonight.
Thanks for talking to me too. I appreciate it.
Love you.
And I do love you very much.
I love you too.
Okay.
Bye.
Well, that wraps up another episode of Sisters. This series has us focusing more specifically on ADHD and all of its symptoms. If you enjoyed this episode as much as we enjoy laughing with each other, please share it with someone you think would benefit from the conversation. Make sure to follow us on whatever platform you are currently listening to so that you can get notified each week. Next week, we'll be talking about my messy car. Is it because I'm a slob? Is it because of my ADHD? Tune in next week to find out. Until then, here's to a great end of the week. And remember, stay curious.